Look at these. Patricia slammed the photos on our kitchen table, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the glossy prints. Your precious wife isn't who you think she is, Marcus. I stood frozen, watching my husband of 8 years pick up the photographs with trembling hands. Each image showed me apparently meeting a man at various locations, outside a hotel, at a restaurant, in a parking lot. The photos were grainy, taken from a distance but clear enough to suggest intimacy. Except I had never been to any of those places. Emma? Marcus's voice cracked as he looked up at me, his face pale. What is this? Those are fake, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. Your mother fabricated them. Patricia gasped dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest. How dare you accuse me? I'm only trying to protect my son from a cheating wife. I might have believed her performance if I hadn't been recording every interaction with my mother-in-law for the past 6 months. The tiny pendant around my neck wasn't just jewelry. It was a high-quality recording device, capturing every scheme and manipulation Patricia had orchestrated since she moved in with us temporarily after her supposed house flooding. Marcus, think about it, I pleaded. When would I have time for an affair? I work from home, we share our location with each other, and the timestamps on these photos go back months. He cut me off, his voice rising. All those late nights you said you were working. Were you with him? I felt a familiar ache in my chest. For years, Patricia had been poisoning Marcus's mind against me, planting seeds of doubt, making subtle comments about my trustworthiness. I'd started recording everything because I knew someday she'd make her big move. I just hadn't expected her to go this far. This explains everything, Patricia pressed, putting an arm around Marcus. Why she's been so distant, why she always finds excuses not to give you children. She's been unfaithful all along. The truth was, we'd been trying for a baby for 2 years. The fertility treatments had been expensive and emotionally draining, but I kept them private at Marcus's request. He didn't want his mother knowing about our struggles. I'm not cheating, I stated firmly. Those photos are doctored. Patricia, would you like to tell Marcus about your meeting with James at the coffee shop last week? Her face flickered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus, she's clearly trying to deflect. I can't do this, Marcus interrupted, standing up abruptly. I need to think. He grabbed his keys and stormed out, leaving me alone with Patricia. Her sympathetic mask dropped instantly, replaced by a cold smile. He'll be moving in with Jessica from his office, she said smugly. You know, the young receptionist he's been seeing for the past 3 months. I've been helping them find an apartment. The revelation should have shocked me, but somehow it didn't. I'd noticed the signs, the late nights, the hidden phone calls, the sudden password changes on his devices. But I'd been so focused on documenting Patricia's manipulation that I'd underestimated her ultimate plan. You knew about his affair all along, I said, the pieces clicking into place. You've been covering for him. Of course I have. Jessica is much better suited for my son. Young, fertile, and most importantly, not you. Patricia gathered the photos, tucking them into her designer handbag. Marcus won't file for divorce, of course. That would mean splitting assets, and we can't have that. You'll just have to accept that your marriage is over. I watched her sashay out of the kitchen, her victory seemingly complete. She had no idea that every word she just said was recorded, along with hundreds of hours of similar conversations over the past months. But I wasn't ready to reveal that yet. Later that evening, Marcus returned briefly to pack a bag. I'm staying with Jessica for a while, he announced, avoiding my eyes. Mother's right, we don't need lawyers involved. I'll keep paying the mortgage, but I need space. I sat quietly at the kitchen table, watching him gather his things. Just like that. 8 years of marriage and you're choosing to believe doctored photos over me? He paused at the door, his back to me. The photos just confirmed what Mother's been saying all along. You've never really fit into this family. After he left, I went to my home office and unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was an external hard drive containing months of recorded conversations, security camera footage, and emails. A digital record of every manipulation, every lie, every scheme Patricia had orchestrated. I plugged in the hard drive and opened a folder labeled Insurance. Inside were recordings of Patricia bragging to her friend about hiring someone to create the fake photos. discussions with Jessica about how to help Marcus avoid divorce proceedings, and countless conversations where she detailed her plans to drive me out of Marcus's life. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "I expect you'll be moving out soon. The house belongs to the family after all." I smiled, thinking of the USB drive in my pendant and the backup copies I'd stored in 3 different locations. Patricia thought she'd won, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail about me. I'd learned from the best. My own mother had been a private investigator, and she taught me the importance of always being prepared. Everything in its own time, I texted back, knowing it would drive her crazy not to get an emotional response. I had all the evidence I needed. Now it was just a matter of timing. The next few weeks played out exactly as I'd expected. Marcus divided his time between Jessica's apartment and his mother's house, while Patricia took every opportunity to flaunt her victory. She dropped by the house unannounced, supposedly to check on things, but really to remind me of my impending defeat. Jessica's redecorating their new apartment, she announced one afternoon, uninvited in my kitchen. She has such wonderful taste, and she's young enough to give Marcus children. Naturally, of course. I kept my face neutral as my pendant recorded every word. "How interesting. Would you like to tell me more about how you helped them find that apartment?" Patricia's smile faltered slightly. She wasn't used to my calm responses, no tears, no anger, no begging Marcus to come back. It made her nervous, though she tried not to show it. "I don't know what you're implying," she said, adjusting her expensive scarf. "I merely want what's best for my son." "Of course you do. Like when you hired James to Photoshop those pictures." The coffee cup in her hand trembled slightly. "You can't prove anything." I smiled, saying nothing. Let her worry. That evening, Marcus came by to collect more clothes. He looked tired, the initial excitement of his new freedom clearly wearing thin. "Mother says you're being difficult about moving out," he said, stuffing shirts into a duffel bag. "Is that what she says?" I kept my voice level. "What else does she tell you about me?" He paused, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Look, I know the situation isn't ideal, but—" "Isn't ideal?" I interrupted. "You're living with your mistress while your mother orchestrates the destruction of our marriage, and you won't even consider the possibility that those photos were fake." "I saw you with him," Marcus snapped. "In those pictures." "Pictures can lie," I said quietly. "Just like mothers can lie. Just like husbands can lie about working late when they're really with their receptionists." He had the grace to look ashamed, but his mother's influence ran deep. "You're just trying to turn this around on me. Mother warned me you'd do this." I watched him leave, knowing it was almost time to make my move. The next morning, I received a text from Jessica of all people. "Your NIL says you're being stubborn about the house. Why don't you just leave with dignity?" I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing file. An hour later, Patricia called. "I've been patient," she said, her voice sickly sweet. "But it's time for you to accept reality. Marcus and Jessica are building a life together. You need to move on." "You're right," I replied. "Things do need to move forward." "Finally, I'll help you find a nice apartment." Actually, I cut her off. I was thinking more about moving forward with my evidence file. There was a long pause. "What evidence file?" "Oh, you know, recordings, security footage, emails. It's amazing what people will say when they think no one's listening. Like discussions about hiring someone to create fake photos, or plans to help your son avoid divorce proceedings." The silence on the other end was deafening. "You're bluffing," she finally managed. "Would you like me to quote your exact words from last Tuesday, when you were telling your friend Helen about how you orchestrated this whole situation?" I heard her sharp intake of breath. "What do you want?" "I want you to tell Marcus the truth. About the photos, about how you've been manipulating him, about everything. You have until tomorrow evening. And if I don't, then the evidence goes to Marcus, your church committee, and your precious country club friends. I wonder what they think about you helping your son commit adultery and financial fraud." She hung up without another word. I spent that evening organizing my files, making sure every piece of evidence was properly labeled and backed up. The recordings were damning. Patricia discussing her plans in detail, coaching Jessica on how to seduce Marcus, bragging about having the photos doctored. There were even conversations with Marcus where she systematically poisoned him against me, twisting every innocent interaction into something suspicious. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Marcus. "Mother's acting strange. Says she needs to talk to both of us tomorrow. What's going on? I replied simply, I guess we'll find out. Another message popped up, this one from Patricia. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I looked at my wedding photos still hanging on the wall, remembering the woman I used to be, eager to please, desperate for Patricia's approval. Always giving Marcus the benefit of the doubt. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. Tomorrow would change everything, but for now, I slept soundly, knowing I held all the cards. Patricia's web of lies was about to unravel, and I had front row seats to the show. The truth would come out, one way or another. I just hoped Marcus was ready to face it. The next evening, our kitchen became a battleground. Marcus sat at the table, looking confused and wary. Patricia perched on the edge of her chair like she might bolt at any moment. I remained standing, my pendant recorder capturing everything. Well, Marcus prompted. What's this about, Mother? Patricia's perfectly manicured fingers twisted in her lap. I may have made some mistakes. What kind of mistakes? I asked, my voice deliberately gentle. She shot me a venomous look before turning to Marcus. The photos. They weren't exactly what they seemed. What do you mean? Marcus's face darkened. They were altered. The words seemed to physically pain her. I had someone edit them to make it look like Emma was being unfaithful. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at his mother, his face draining of color. You did what? He whispered. I was protecting you. Patricia burst out. She's not right for you, Marcus. She's too independent, too focused on her career. I just wanted. Stop. Marcus held up his hand. Just stop. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Patricia gleefully describing to her friend how she orchestrated the whole plan, including helping Jessica pursue Marcus. There's more, I said quietly. Hours more. Every manipulation, every lie, every scheme, all recorded. Marcus listened, his expression growing more horrified with each revelation. When the recording ended, he turned to his mother. How could you? His voice cracked. You helped me destroy my marriage based on lies. I did it for you. Patricia insisted. And let's not pretend you're innocent in this. You were seeing Jessica long before I showed you those photos. The truth hit him like a physical blow. He slumped in his chair, the full weight of his choices finally sinking in. Emma, he started, turning to me. I don't know what to say. I do, I replied calmly. I want a divorce. A proper one, with fair division of assets. But we can fix this, he protested. Now that I know the truth is, you were willing to believe the worst about me. You moved in with another woman and tried to cheat me out of my share of our assets. Your mother's lies worked because you wanted them to. Patricia stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You can't? I can, I cut her off. And unless you want these recordings shared with everyone you know, you'll stop interfering. Both of you will. They left separately, Marcus to presumably face Jessica with the truth, Patricia to salvage what she could of her reputation. I stayed in the kitchen, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next few weeks brought significant changes. Marcus moved out permanently, this time with proper divorce proceedings in motion. Patricia disappeared to her sister's house in Florida, her influence finally neutralized. Jessica, upon learning the full story, ended things with Marcus. Apparently, a man who would believe fake photos over his wife wasn't quite the catch she thought. My lawyer called with updates. The evidence you gathered is impressive. We'll get a fair settlement. Thank you, I replied. But make sure everyone understands, I'm not looking for revenge. I just want what's rightfully mine. 6 months later, I sat on my newly purchased condo's balcony, watching the sunset. The divorce was finalized, the assets split fairly. Marcus had finally apologized, not that it changed anything. Patricia still wasn't speaking to me, which was honestly a relief. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Laura. Heard through the grapevine that Patricia's country club friends aren't too happy with her these days. Something about helping her son have an affair. I smiled but didn't respond. I'd never actually shared the recordings publicly. The threat had been enough. Sometimes the best victory is simply moving forward with dignity. The pendant recorder still sat in my jewelry box, a reminder that strength often comes in unexpected forms. I didn't need it anymore, but I kept it as a symbol of how far I'd come. My new life was just beginning, and this time, No one else was writing the story but me.